Hello, everybody. Welcome to DG360. We're going to check out the tons of performance optimizations here from Super Mac Brothers. I dig him. Let's see what is on the platform for 3.23.
Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. There is a new Alpha 3.23 patch which brings a ton of optimizations, in particular for the Vulkan API. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members, in particular to my latest patron, the Rajax. Thank you so much for the support, it is truly appreciated. So the latest Alpha 3.23 patch, which released yesterday to the EPTU, still for Wave 2, but this particular patch has seen a significant number of optimizations, especially for the Vulkan API, which as we know made its way in about a week or two ago. So today I will run through the patch notes and list all of the changes, and the footage in the background is from this very patch, so it should be a good example as to how performance is. Anyway, starting with locations and distribution centers, they have performed a performance art and lighting polish pass on them, and they have added new civilian and desk worker NPC archetypes to distribution centers as well. So it does appear that as time goes on, these distribution centers are getting more and more optimizations, just like we saw with the settlements when they first came in, which were essentially unplayable when they first released. Hopefully the same will be happening to DCs, getting more and more playable while in the EPTU phase, so that when they go to live,
saw you talk about that water tech we were watching
now
last
for
week,
gameplay and targeting, you are no longer required to scan a target before seeing the available sub-targets, which certainly seems like a good idea. Jamming now only blocks quantum drive spooling. They have removed the pixel grid and monitor effects on the Mobiglass card materials. They have added a scroll bar to the objective page on the contracts manager, and they have lowered gimbal and scattergun fire rates, amongst other smaller changes.
Yeah, and Aether's saying the distro centers are super cool. The insides are massive, fully integrated into the mini-map now. We're going to watch some of that footage, I believe, on tomorrow's morning show, where ERAD goes in and actually does a mission, which is going to be really interesting, Aether. The distribution centers are going to be really important to the game. Not only going to be like trade centers, but they're going to be like big hubs of activity on planets and moons. Like I expect the distribution centers to be a really large portion of the game. Traders and every genre of person, whatever your genre is that you pick in the game, which is cool about the game, you're going to find that the distribution centers are going to be very important.
For weapons, they have increased the magazine sizes for the Bearing pistol, which is the S38, I believe, the Kastak Arms Kana plasma rifle, the Bearing P4 AR assault rifle, and the Gemini SMG, which I think is referring to the C54. So they are still clearly tweaking and balancing all of the FPS stuff, which is good to see, making sure that everything fits where it's supposed to. Now, for ships and vehicles, it says they have heavily optimized the Pisces thrusters and visual improvements. The Mantis quantum drive fuel capacity was increased to improve the ship's capabilities, and the Starlecter's fuel tanks were reverted back to previous values as they were way too high. So also a lot of tweaks for ships and vehicles, and we are likely going to see a lot more of these sort of small value alterations over the course of development as it gets closer and closer to 1.0, as they will want everything to be perfect. But I suspect this will take quite a bit of time and multiple iterations. Now onto the core tech for this particular patch. First up is something called Vulkan PSO pre-compiling. And this says Vulkan will now pre-compile all PSOs, which is the shader cache, when the game starts for the current quality setting. It says this may take up to several minutes, but will prevent any stuttering or hitching of the game at runtime, and it is advised to wait until the process is complete before launching the game. And there will be a little bit of text in the lower left-hand corner saying optimizing shaders, so you know when it's happening. Also, do bear in mind, changing the graphical quality settings in the menu will restart this process and compile all the PSOs for that current setting as well. So great to see them tackling these micro stutters, which must be caused by the Vulkan API. Not an ideal solution, as you will be held up before you're able to launch, but I'm sure I've seen other games doing this, and it is certainly worth doing so to avoid these little stutters. Now, also for Cortec, in terms of optimizations, they have made further Vulkan renderer optimizations, further Vulkan shader optimizations, further network performance optimizations, server physics performance optimizations, and location streaming performance optimizations. Plus, they have put in further safeguards to help stop elevators and transits behaving erratically. They have done lighting performance optimizations and polished lighting of raised wave crests viewed from a shallow angle. So, a lot of performance optimizations there.
Good,
CIG are
glad,
really working and pushing on performance and stability for many areas. It is great hearing that they are doing network, location streaming, and physics optimizations as well.
Holy shit. Network. This is big because this is the areas that I want them to focus on in 2024, man. I mean, these are the two areas that are most important to me, for real. Like needs a lot of love, and I'm so glad they're focusing on it this year.
They did also mention that for 323, it is going to be heavily focused on stability and
really
performance.
You're right, dude.
And
I find myself like relaxing with some hot cocoa.
But at the time of recording, I haven't played it yet, so hopefully the background footage will give some indication as to whether it's worked or not. Now, there are also 24 more bug fixes, 10 client crashes fixed, 10 server crashes fixed, 3 client deadlocks fixed, and a Vulkan-specific client crash fixed as well. So really happy to see that they are pushing performance as much as possible, and we haven't even had multi-threading enabled with Vulkan yet either. So that is supposed to be bringing the most significant gains in terms of performance. But very happy to see that they have been working hard in this area.
That's good. They need to.
Now, in regards to when Alpha 323 is supposed to release to live, I see a lot of people asking. As always, though, there are never any exact dates. It is always tentative. It is always ready when it's ready. The end of April is the most accurate date that they have provided. And now that it is in Wave 2 and the hangar, freight elevator, and cargo updates are no longer slated to release in the initial 323 release, coming later in a 323 point
Don't
patch,
fall asleep,
I think it is highly likely to see 323 release at the end of April or very early in May. So my estimation would be around the 30th of this month. But of course, anything can come up, and it takes as long as it takes.
Yes, Aether.
Now,
Absolutely.
I would presume that the 323.1 patch will come along for Invictus, which usually happens.
Aether's bringing up good points. I love when Aether's on the show because he always brings up really good observations. He's like, notice the mission indicators on the top right of the HUD now. They made some really nice UI changes. The UI changes that needed to happen. Like it's making it like this is a lot of polish, by the way, guys. Like I hope you guys understand that like we're getting closer and closer. There's like this. Oh, thank you. Let's go. We're getting closer, Polka, man. Yeah, that's perfect timing. We're getting closer and closer, Polka. Listen, the polish and the polish and the polish and the polish. Like what I'm seeing is a lot of the polish. Now, base play coming in through Arena Commander. We watch Inside Star Citizen tonight. In terms of engineering, we're starting at a 1.0 engineering baby phase. We're going to build upon that. It's going to be the test bed through Arena Commander, trying to figure out how components get physicalized, damage put upon them, placed upon them. It's going to be a wonderful test bed for that. So there's still like basic mechanical gameplay elements that need to be inserted, which are happening. But we're seeing a lot of polish on the UI, which is really nice. And also, time for another polka next arcade. Polish polka. Thank you, Arcane. Thank you.
Happens around the end of May. And for those asking, is server meshing in 323? No, it is not, and it was never intended to be. The replication layer separation.
Oh, Kuwatu hands. Thank you. Thank you, Wood Street. Oh, Kuwatu hands. Touch the Kuwatu hands. Touch them. I look a lot like Kuwatu, and it's very disturbing to me. Like, I asked Christy, I said, is it true? Do I make a good Kuwatu? She's telling me that I make the best Kuwatu she's ever seen.
Has been done for the initial release of 323, which is a big win, as this was the next step to getting to server meshing. But the last thing CIG said in regards to server meshing was a tentative date of summertime this year, which is quite a big window, but that is when they're expecting to release Alpha 4.0, which will be server meshing, jump points, and the pyro system. Of course, Alpha 323 does get us significantly closer to Alpha 4.0, but there is still a lot of testing to do before 4.0 can come along. But there you go. That was the latest Alpha 323 patch notes. Apologies for the lack of content, especially in the 323 area. April has been a bit of a busy month for me family-wise, so I am playing a bit of catch-up, and it's not looking to quieten down anytime soon either, unfortunately. But I will be streaming this afternoon over at twitch.tv/SuperMacBrother playing.
Okay, well, interesting news and information. I like the dude. He's super chill. He's always bringing about like just factual news, and he's not super opinion based, which I also like. He's just like, here it is.